welcome everyone. Welcome to our next session, Don't Go It Alone, talking about the importance of community. If you're joining us, we're going to give people a couple minutes to join. Go ahead and throw in the chat where you're joining us from. Say hi. Dawn, nice to see you back. All right, hi Mark. Diana, hi Tiffany. Nice to see a lot of you that have joined from previously joining earlier today. Glad to see you. Glad you're still here. I know there's been a lot of information that's been thrown out this way today. Give it about another minute. We'll go ahead and get started. We got people from all over, coast to coast. Uh-oh, here comes the university talk in North Carolina. I know that's a hotly debated topic in that state, especially if we got Duke or UNC fans or UNC or NC State fans in the house. I'm going to open a can of worms with that one. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to take a couple minutes and introduce you to our speaker today. Jared Speight actually used to be a teacher, just like many of you, who's transitioned into the field of instructional design, now works for Stride. And today, he just wants to chat with you about the importance of having community as you're working on that transition. As most of you have noticed today, it's nice to feel like you're not alone in this transition. So Jared, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you so we can dive in.
All right. Thank you, Abby. So when I was asked to do this presentation, I immediately thought about how important community was to my job search and how much better it made everything. So that is going to be our topic, don't go it alone, and the importance of community. And obviously network is going to be playing a part of this, but I think community is a much better word for kind of what you have to do in the job search while you're trying to meet people, because just adding somebody to your LinkedIn profile is not the same as going through that transition with them and working with them and becoming better together. So that's what this is about. It's certainly not going to take an hour, but feel free to ask questions. We'll get to those throughout the presentation. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and just take advantage of that chat feature to add your thoughts or questions throughout the presentation. So briefly about me, and Abby just said this, I'm an instructional designer at Stride. It's one of the largest educational providers for K-12 in the country. I work on the corporate end of things, and I am a former middle school, high school teacher, 14 years in the classroom, language arts, and social studies. And over the summer, the last 2 years, I've facilitated and hosted a group called Summer Break Room, which is for teachers who are transitioning to L&D and specifically instructional design. So that was a great group that's helped me out. And I'm in Asheville, so you can see we've got beautiful mountains all over the place. And we love to go hiking when we can. I did 2 years of full pandemic teaching in the classroom, and that was when I decided I needed to get out. I was over Thanksgiving break of that second year. And I did not know what I was doing. So I went back through my old Excel sheet and looked at the numbers, and I applied to 139 different positions from November to June. And about 120 of those were in the first few months. And out of that, I basically got nothing back. I had one email about a possible interview, and that was kind of it. So after those first 3 months of just catastrophic failure, I started buckling down and trying to revamp my strategy, building my network, building my portfolio, and that's where this community stuff came in. My first break came from somebody who I met on LinkedIn that I have never seen in real life. And it was that community connection that helped me get my start in L&D. So there's this saying, I think Cory Booker is the first person to say it recently, but if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I really like the sentiment behind this, but I think there is one problem with it. And that is that what if none of you know where you're going, right? You're going to get there quick and you're going to go far, but you might not be going in the right direction. So one thing that I think is really important while you're networking and while you're building with community is this is the actual original proverb. Here is from Kenya, I believe, but it says, alone a youth runs fast, with elders slow, but together they go far. So it's not just about getting a group of people together and going in one direction. It's about having a strategy, working with people who are further along than you, and people who are where you are as well, right? We need to connect with people who have been on the journey that we are and have gone further ahead. They know how to get there. They know what worked for them at least. And we can learn from that. So we need to connect with people further ahead where we're at. And then also kind of those who are behind us. Abby and I were talking before we came in, and we've made the transition. It's nice to be able to help people where we were when we were clueless and didn't have a clue what we were doing. And we were struggling, right? So try to be that what you needed for other people who are behind. And I mentioned this whenever we first got started, but a bigger network is not necessarily a great thing. There's value there. I know that some people say it's vanity metrics, but having real solid connections is always going to be better for you than having 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. People who will speak your name in a room when there is an opportunity. I'd rather have 2 of those than 100 connections. Like it's not comparable. So building that community, a solid network is extremely important. And the 3 areas that I was going to look at here are the benefits of community for professional growth, potential opportunities, and then moral support. And I think all 3 of those are extremely important while you're in the job search, and also after you're in the job search. Like, it's a never-ending target. You always want to move up, move along, get better at what you do, and community can play a very important role there. And we know that all learning is social, right? There's all the learning theories out there, but most of them have some sort of social connection. Adults just learn better in the context of community. When we are talking to each other, we are learning alongside of one another. So professional growth, you're going to get that in the context of community more so than just reading a book on your own and hoping that it sticks, right? And one thing that I really wanted to do throughout this presentation is give you practical steps. Like, I don't care about just talking about in theory, but these are things that you can do to build that community with professional growth. There are people I know who started L&D book clubs, and they've read books like the Non-Designer's Design Book, and all these different things that help instructional designers and other L&D professionals get better at their jobs. So if you want to start one, reach out to a few people who are in your network, maybe in the chat. GLDC is a group that I'm in. It's called the Global Learning and Development Community. They have a monthly book club. So if you don't have the bandwidth right now to start your own, you can join one that is already existing. And then as you're learning and as you're reading this book, you can build your network more by sharing your takeaways on LinkedIn, and other people will see that content. You can put it in your blog for people to look at as they're reviewing your portfolio. But using that community to learn more, show what you're learning, and connect to people and get better is huge. And then shared portfolio artifacts. I don't know if any of you follow Tim Slade or the e-learning community. I'm struggling with the name, Designers Community. But he recently started doing challenges. Every month he puts out branded assets, which was always the thing I hated most about building my portfolios of making these fake situations and scenarios. He does that for you, and you build a project that addresses those needs. And I was talking to a few people when that first got started. Oh, thank you, Abby. So the link for that is in the chat. And like she said, it's free. But what you can do is just team up. Cost is a big issue when teachers are trying to get into instructional design, because Storyline's not cheap, Captivate's not cheap, Camtasia, you have all those things. And if you're doing shared portfolio artifacts, you don't have to do all the work and invest all the time or the money. Like if Abby and I were to work on a shared portfolio artifact, maybe I do the storyboarding because I don't have an Articulate subscription, and she can build it out, and we get a third person to make videos for it. And then we can all share that entry and talk about what we did. So collaborating together on shared portfolio artifacts gives you the chance to build your portfolio, but also learn from one another along the way. One of my favorite things about my current job is reviewing other people's courses, because there's 10,000 ways to do everything. And I learned a lot from the two instructional designers who are on my team. We all approach things differently, and we all build differently. So being able to see how and why they did certain things is great. And that can be beneficial on the job search too. So split the work, show off your ability to collaborate, and build your portfolio. And there's even a monthly prize. So maybe you get a gift card that you get to split amongst yourselves. And then learning cohorts. When I first started my transition, my Articulate storylines were terrible. Like I went back through and looked at a few of them earlier, and they were bad. And one of the groups that helped me get better is the Project Club. Russell Sweep randomly reached out to me. He's an instructional designer who lived in the same city. And he messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm doing this group. Every week we meet and we build out whatever the Articulate Storyline eLearning Heroes challenge is. We look at other people's builds. We give constructive feedback. So if you're looking for a structured place to meet, that would be a good option. Teach, Learn, Dev. Okay. So that's a great place. Abby just put something in the chat. That might be another good place for you. And then I have not done Learning Guild's XAPI cohort yet. I've heard good things. I mostly work with SCORM packages that are on an LMS, not an LRS. But if you are looking to learn about XAPI, Learning Guild has a cohort that you can team up with other people and work on a real project there. And all of these underlined things are links. I'll put a link in the chat when I'm done with the presentation, so you can click on all these things. Potential opportunities was the second one. We know that who you know is extremely important, sometimes more so than what you even know. So here's the simple truth of the matter, right? Freelancers and corporations often take on big projects that they cannot do on their own, and they subcontract. So if you're able to network with somebody who is a freelancer, they might need you to put in 10 to 20 hours on a small project, and that's experience. The company I work for occasionally takes on a big project where we need, for an external client, some people to come in, and that would be an opportunity. And then people who work for companies get a referral bonus oftentimes if they're able to help somebody get hired and fill a position. I recently got a check that had a referral bonus. It was nice. I helped somebody get a job and I got paid for it. That's a win-win. So people are often willing and hoping to help you out because it benefits everyone. So being able to fill that need as a subcontractor or helping someone get paid, that's nice for everybody involved. So make sure that you are adding freelancers and people who are in companies to your network and getting to know them, because they can help you out and they can be the people who speak your name in those rooms with hiring decisions. And then another thing that I did not think of for some reason when I was starting this, do not just connect with people who are in the role you want. Connect with people who are adjacent to it. Obviously recruiters, they're the ones who are going to be posting positions. Try to connect with the recruiters and aspiring recruiters. A lot of you are teachers or professors. There's a lot of teachers who are trying to get into these fields as well. If you connect with them now, 6 months from now, they might be filling a position that you could potentially be looking for. So connect with recruiters, hiring managers, and L&D adjacent professionals, such as professional voiceover artists, video producers. These are people who get pulled in on projects, and they might be able to help direct you toward opportunities later. And if not, they're just great people to know, because the L&D community is full of wonderful people, and you might need them later after you get a position to help you with some of your projects as well. So network outside of your role. And then moral support. We all know that the job hunt is demoralizing. It's not a great job market right now for the L&D professional. You need people that are there to support you for that. It's not a good idea to post on LinkedIn about how terrible the job search is. People will see that that's negative. People might not want to talk to you. And then companies who are hiring are going to see that you've got rejected for a lot of positions. Then maybe those companies know something that they don't about you. So just posting online that the job hunt is awful is not going to be beneficial. You need people who you can just talk to and express that. And a lot of you know that. It's just about having a safe space to do that. Venting in an appropriate manner, right? But also people who, and Mark, I'll get to your question in just a second. But people who give you sound advice and constructive criticism are important as well. You definitely need the people to gripe and moan to, but you're not going to get better just from that. So having people who can look objectively at your situation, say, look, this right here might be one of the issues. This is how we can address this and fix it. People who drop your name when they can, and then people who celebrate you when you get that opportunity to come your way. So Mark, why it's not a good market for LI? Can you tell me what LI is? Oh, L&D. Okay, sorry. Okay. We're often one of the first areas to get laid off. Unfortunately, it's recruitment and L&D. It seems to be some of the first two areas to get hit. And I mean, I'm sure that y'all have all seen there's been a lot of layoffs this year, which unfortunately means, especially if you're just trying to transition into the field, you're not just competing against people who are transitioning into L&D. You're in the job market against people who have been instructional designers or trainers for 10, 15 years, have the experience, and just got laid off last month. So there are certainly positions. I mean, if you go to LinkedIn and click that jobs button, there's a ton. But there's also a lot of people applying for those who have a more proven track record than people who are just starting to move in, which is unfortunate timing. But it is kind of the reality. Tech seems to be one of the areas that's getting hit the hardest right now. I'm fortunate, knock on wood. I work in an online school provider, and that is pretty stable. That's a growing industry. I don't anticipate, getting an email from HR saying that our team's been cut, but you never know. But it really is across all fields. And those instructional designers who work in tech or technology parts of companies, they're not just going to apply for those similar roles. Somebody who was a L&D professional at Google could be applying to a more medical related thing because they have that experience. But great question.
I think you're touching on that, Jared, too. Just layoffs are a part of the way that corporations run. So it's just one of those things that are a fact of working in this space. So they always tell you to keep your profile up, keep networking, because you never know when your situation could change. I know that's different than teaching, where you get a lot of notice when your contract ends. It's not like that when you work for corporations. It's just, if you're making that move, it's just something to be aware of. There's no space that's safe. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're applying and considering where you potentially want to end up.
Yeah. And that was something that was very different from teaching. I was a teacher in North Carolina for 14 years. Throughout my whole career, there were very few times where I could have submitted a resume and not at least gotten a call back. And right now, I feel like I wouldn't even have to give a resume. I could probably just walk in and say, here's my license, and get a position in a lot of schools. So it is very different with, with corporate. Yes. I think that, and Virginia just asked, she's a staff professional development as an instructional specialist and struggled to make the move to private L&D. It is very different. And for better or worse, I do think that it's hard for teachers to make that transition. It's a completely different topic, but when I first started, I had the mentality of I can teach teenagers about history and get them engaged. Like I can do whatever it is you need me to do. I have people showing up to my class and raising their hand and doing their work for history. But companies want people who have more experience with adults. And then this is just my 2 cents. Instructional design is basically a hybrid role with e-learning development lately. And a lot of teachers don't have experience with course authoring tools. So if you don't have that, and Virginia, I don't know if that's your situation, it's very hard to get a position without that proven experience with the tools. You have the skill set for sure. And yes, there are a lot of transitioning teachers who their skills aren't recognized. Yeah, absolutely.
There's also, you also may want to explore an in-between role. Maybe it's not an L&D role yet, but maybe you look at sales, or there's a lot of different jobs that you can hold as a former teacher. I got my first job in enrollment when I left teaching. So it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it got me out of teaching and it got me into another potential career path. I changed twice since then. And unfortunately, I was laid off in my last role, but it is what it is. And I would recommend finding a space in between. You got to have money to pay the bills. It's going to get you, maybe you want to work at one of those major companies like Imagine Learning. Maybe you come on as a sales rep or something, and then you can eventually make that transition. It's much easier to get hired internally than it is externally. And there's a lot of things that you can speak to. There's a lot of tools that you used in the classroom that you could turn around and use to generate sales or other roles that are not necessarily instructional design yet. But I'm a big proponent in the in-between roles, because your dream role, it's not realistic to think that you can land that immediately. Career transitions, I worked at a tech boot camp before this. A lot of them come in thinking I can do this in 2 months. It's not like that. It's going to take time to make that transition, especially in today's market. Like Jared was saying, there's a lot of people that have been laid off, that it's really hard to compete when you don't have 10 years of experience and your foot in the industry already.
And that is a good point. My team at Stride, where I work, I think I'm the only person who came to the company as an instructional designer. The other people on my team had other roles, and they made the lateral move over to our team. So getting your foot in the door at one of those companies, it's a lot easier to go that way if you can. Absolutely. And again, I'll share this out in a little bit, but these are some of the L&D communities that I have found that I'm a part of. TLDC, obviously, thank y'all for putting this on. It's a great Slack community. I'm more of a lurker in there. I read stuff, but I don't actually post anything. But great place to go for resources, for finding out about conferences like this. If you're more of a person that just has to see people, GLDC is a great place. That link will get you into the community there. Oh, Tabitha's here. She's in GLDC as well. They have weekly Zoom meetings where you can network and meet a whole bunch of other L&D professionals, the book club, things like that. Teaching a Path to L&D is a great LinkedIn group. If you're not in there, I would definitely encourage you to do that. And I think I saw somebody mention the EDU Fellowship Speed Mixers earlier. Every month they have It's a really neat video meeting platform. I've been to a couple of those, but speed mixer, so you get thrown into a room with a couple of people really quick. And the value that I have found from that isn't necessarily from those meetings itself, but from networking with those people that I meet there afterward, and actually deepening some of those relationships and learning from those individuals.
Those are so much fun. If you haven't been, definitely go. It's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So these links will be available to you in a little bit. And if you have never seen this TED Talk, I would definitely recommend checking it out. So when I post this in the chat, you can just go there and click play. But it's about the 3 bones of networking. It's only like 6 or 7 minutes, but it's really beneficial. Networking is one thing that I don't necessarily enjoy the first steps in because it's always awkward reaching out to people. But this is a good talk. Isaac has some great points in there that makes it a little bit easier. Okay, it just timed out. But it's a great TED Talk for learning how to network and meet other people. But that was the last slide of my presentation. I'm happy to address any questions in the chat if you have them. Feel free to ask.
Do you have the link that you could throw in that TED Talk in the chat for us?
Let's see.
For anybody that wants to take a look. My advice is get used to talking to strangers. It feels very weird not knowing LinkedIn and the platform when you're coming from teaching, but before you know it, you'll be an expert.
There we go. And the TED Talk is here.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and throw these into the feed so that we have them. And anyone that didn't drop in their networking information, definitely do that. Drop it into the feed, which it looks like a little newspaper at the top right of your screen between the shield and the people icon. If you haven't, go ahead and drop your info in there so that you can continue to connect. I think we have a lot of people that are not live right now. And when they come in, it'll be great for them to be able to see the different presentations, but also see other people and grow their networks.
We may have, Michelle. My memory is a little bit fuzzy sometimes, but there's a ton of great people to meet at those EDU mixers. I think the next one is in 2 weeks, like
February 15th. I just looked.
Okay.
And I think if you go into your subscription there, it'll actually tell you who you matched with, which is fantastic. So you can go back later and see who was that I just talked to, because things get buried in chats. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put I think I put my information in the feed already, but anybody that wants to chat, get tips, I'm throwing my LinkedIn in the event feed. If anyone wants to reach out and connect, happy to do it. I'm happy to share tips of advice I wish I had when I left teaching. The list is long, but don't be like me and don't go it alone. It's a lot easier when you have a group. The event feed is up at the top. There's a bar running across your screen. So look at the top, and it is the second icon to the left. It looks like a little newspaper. It's next to the shield. Were you able to find it? You'll want to post in the event feed and not in the chat, because the chat is going to disappear once this session closes. But if you leave it out in the feed, it will be available all week. Perfect. I'm so glad. And that way you'll have it, because a lot of people have dropped their information in. So if you haven't already, I'd start going through and networking with the people that have put their information out there. It's going to really help you build up your network. And I think Jared already mentioned, don't randomly connect with people. You'll get a lot of random requests from people. Make it purposeful, because you never know when someone's going to help you find a job. And it's really hard to get a job these days without having someone vouch for you and having them pull your resume out of 600 and getting eyes on it. It's really hard to get past the applicant tracking system. So when you can have someone personally endorse you, that's automatically going to increase your chances exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you, Mark. I think a lot of people, I don't want to say judgy, but we all have our own journey and our own reasons for wanting to leave teaching, and it's hard to kind of feel like you're fighting a stigma, but I promise you there's a lot of people outside of the industry that are more than willing to help you build your skills, help build those network connections, and kind of find your identity outside of teaching. And I know that's really hard to do when you first start. Very challenging.
And I think part of that too is companies want to see what you're running to and not what you're running from.
Right.
And a lot of the posts that I see, and it's kind of how I started when I was doing my job, and I didn't post the stuff, but it was, I have to get out of teaching, not I have to be an instructional designer. And I think that's probably where some of that stigma comes in. And just,
there's a great thread going on. Have you seen Tim Slade's "Is the Industry Saturated?" And there's a lot of people out there that are going to peddle you a magic solution. There isn't one. Everyone has to find their own way. And a lot of people who are not experts in the field are going to try to give you advice. It's hard to kind of weed through the noise. So making sure you're reaching out to people that are in the industry you want to be. And maybe it's not instructional design. Maybe you want to be a trainer. Finding those people to have those informational interviews with. I think, was it Mark or was it someone else that kind of mentioned having those coffee chats? Like, hey, what do you do? Can I learn more about that? Instructional design is one of the many, many things that you could do as a former teacher, but it's not the only thing. Other ways you can build your experience. Right now, I help advise Kuaps as a gaming company. I'm helping them as a subject matter expert with developing one of their games for use in the public school for their English language learners. So that's nothing. I don't get paid to do it, but it's also very relevant experience. I'll put another link in here. Catch a Fire is an organization that's looking for experts in fields. You can go pick something out to design. They don't care if you have experience. They just want someone help designing a program, and then you have a portfolio piece, and also actual legitimate company to endorse your skills. So also explore that angle. Volunteer expertise, it still counts, whether you got paid or not. Skills are skills. So I'm a big fan of exploring all branches.
Yeah, and my first portfolio artifact that I actually kept was something that I reached out. It was a podcast. I reached out to them like, hey, I enjoy your stuff. I've noticed that some of the sound quality with a few of your guests is subpar. Is there something that I can do to support that free of charge? And then I just said, I'd want is to be able to publish it for my portfolio and get an endorsement from you for it. And people are happy to take that work, especially if you're talking about a nonprofit or a very small company. Yes. And June,
you can find your passion. If it's a community or a piece of a community, maybe something you're involved with, it's something to do that you love. It's really gonna come through and shine.
June, I just saw your question. L&D lateral positions. The people that I work with started out as teachers because that's what the company is, and they moved over. But if I were to try to get into the market or the field now, I would probably be looking more at trainer positions. Yeah. They're easier to come by. I love working remote, and so do a lot of other people. Yeah. So in-person jobs don't have quite as much competition. Right. So any of those positions that require you to be in a location, by default, you have fewer people applying because only so many people live close to that location. And then even fewer want to work in a building 5 days a week. So
that's definitely a good strategy to also look in person. It'll kind of decrease the people that you're applying for. Absolutely. I would say explore if you're open to things like sales or those, maybe it's at the company that you want to be. A lot of teachers go into project management. They go into maybe ed tech sales, or maybe you're a PD rep for Imagine Learning. Those are things you got expertise that other people do not. So you actually have the corner on the market because you know how to market to teachers. So don't sell yourself short, literally on those points. You can be good at sales, but if you don't know the industry and you don't know who you're trying to sell to, so that might be a way to get the edge in there. I started at admissions for that boot camp before I moved to a student-facing role and supporting students in their roles. So there's definitely a lot to be said for roles that are not necessarily your dream role, but a way to get your foot in the door, which I think is what you need right now in this market. It's very much an employer's market because they have so many people to choose from. We've got a question here. Let's see here. Oh, yep. Customer success is another big one, Mark, that people turn to. And the EDU fellowship also does customer success mixers. So recommend signing up for those as well if you're looking at potentially going into customer success. Corporate trainers, another one. A lot of transferable skills if you've done a lot of professional developments. A great place to start as a trainer. Let's see. So we got another question about lots of keywords that lead to jobs in learning and development. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right, Toddy. Tons and tons. And if anyone is looking into project management or maybe some of those other roles, I did work with project managers. And in my last role, I know some project managers. I'd be happy to intro to you. You know, I'm happy to make introductions or help support you if I can. Oh, yeah, Cindy, that's a good one. You know, has someone working at Canva showing educators how they can leverage it in their classroom. And I think Google has that too, like Google trainers that showing teachers how to use Google Classroom. I remember seeing a representative from Imagine Learning who would come to us and run PDs and show us how to use the software. So if you're open to travel, that's definitely a position you could kind of look into too, is traveling and helping support those folks out in the districts that are using the tools. Are there more questions? We've got probably about 20 more minutes if there's other questions or that we can help answer. Got really quiet in here. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or if people are just trying to absorb. Yeah, I got you. If I'm going too fast, definitely let me know. This is a topic, if you couldn't tell, I'm very passionate about. And I will definitely be holding space at tables throughout the week. If anybody wants to stop by and say hi, definitely do, or find me on LinkedIn. But also know you don't have to absorb it all now because we are recording the session and you are absolutely welcome to go back and watch on your own time so that you can continue to glean information. I know as some, and those of you who have also been to work, it's a lot to kind of take in all at once. So, Teresa had a question about the importance of a portfolio. Do you recommend getting that up before applying?
If you're going for instructional design or e-learning developer, I would not even think about applying until you have a portfolio. I think you would be wasting your time. Because again, you're competing against people who have those portfolios, who have that experience. If you don't have that experience, you need to show that you have the skill set they're looking for. And I know that's not a fun thing to hear because those tools are not cheap. But I don't think you're going to have any luck with the ID role or e-learning development without a portfolio.
I'll give you the piece of advice that was given to me by a mentor I had, and he told me, do not get your free Articulate subscription without having an idea of what you want to build. And then you can do the training, watch the YouTubes on how to use Articulate and Storyline, because otherwise your 30 days are gone and you don't even know what you were going to build. So really, really dig into what you can build before you start. And then you'll have the tools that you could actually follow along when you're building. It's much easier. Because Articulate is really expensive and you definitely want to take advantage of the free trial that they have. And if you haven't joined Tim Slade's community, he puts up that monthly design challenge. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do, great, go do his design challenge for a month. Problem solved. But it's also good practice. I'm so sorry. My dog always has to throw her 2 cents in when I'm trying to talk. But it also will help you with things that maybe you're not familiar with, like branding guides or having to work within constraints. I think is also a good thing to be able to showcase as you're learning the tools.
And kind of going back to that, collaborative builds. if you're working with somebody who has their subscription and you don't, you can be the one who does the storyline or the storyboard. You can be the one that reviews it. You can make videos. So there's all kinds of things that you can do on collaborative builds without having to pay for that or pay for the subscription or have your trial active during that moment, and then swap. Like, let them do the next storyboard and you do the next build.
Or you build a PowerPoint because the slides will just import. So if you don't have it, great. There's a lot you can build out and it'll look like a course, but you can use PowerPoint to do it.
And yes, sometimes they do extend it if you call and ask.
I did. I told them I was out of a job and they gave me 15 extra days. So, I mean, they're not without a heart if you email them.
Let's see. Suggestions for tools other than Articulate. That seems to be the industry standard. There are other ones out there. There's Adobe Captivate. The one that I use in my job is called Domino One, but you have to have a work email address to sign up for that. Like, you can't just register for it with a Gmail. There's a lot of different ones out there, but most of the job applications that I've seen, they're looking for Articulate experience, especially contract roles. That just seems to be the most popular one.
I know Ethel had a question of good places to kind of see examples. I put in Tim Slade has a blog about must-see e-learning portfolios. Are there more that you'd suggest, Jared, of places to really get some ideas and see what other people are building?
I need to update mine, but I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is, it has all the resource documents from the group that I hosted this past summer. One of those weeks we looked at portfolios, so that's there. Another one we looked at tools, different pathways to instructional design. So if you click the link for that blog post, it'll take you to all the resources, and it addresses some of the questions that I'm seeing in there. It might be able to help you out.
So it's good to just poke around if you're not sure where to start. Start looking at people that are presenting this week. They have portfolios. Click on their LinkedIn and check out theirs. I know there's a lot of people that post in Tim Slade's community for feedback on their portfolio. I mean, you can get a lot of ideas there. And Tim is fantastic. As far as being approachable of a community host, he will answer you. If you message him, he will write you back. It's amazing how accessible and supportive he is. Amazing community.
And he has a good book out there if you're just getting started in e-learning development. Occasionally, Amazon has it for that free Kindle Unlimited, but definitely recommend it, and definitely worth every penny, even if you can't get it for the unlimited time.
And also LinkedIn courses. I think Tim has a few on LinkedIn Learning as well. I think I mentioned it in a previous session. If you don't have LinkedIn Premium, a lot of local libraries will have subscriptions, so you can access courses through your local library for free, which is a great way to skill build as well. The only difference is that you won't have the badge that you did. You won't have the certificate, but hey, you'll have the knowledge.
Yeah. And if you know somebody who does have Premium and you haven't, usually they get 10 subscriptions they can give out for 2 months. I think I have some. If you've never had Premium, send me a message and I can give the 10 I have away. So
I also think that you have, at least if you haven't utilized your free 30-day trial, you could always start with that too.
Yeah.
And you can upgrade for free for a month and just check it out.
LinkedIn Learning does have some good courses for instructional design specifically. I haven't seen too much of what's on Coursera.
I think there are some courses, but I don't think they're free. I think you have to pay for a lot of them. And the neat thing about doing LinkedIn courses is that they show up as certificates on your profile, and you can kind of showcase the learning journey that you're on and talk or show your network. So every time you complete something, it'll post to your feed, and then everybody can watch your learning journey, make comments. It's just a good way to get visibility.
Yeah. And one thing I would recommend if you're doing that is not just posting the certificate, but posting about your takeaways. Like, this is the course that I did and this is what I learned. Because the reality is, with a lot of those courses, you really can just click next and you'll get the certificate, right? So going that next step, showing, oh, I actually was paying attention. This is my takeaway. That stands out a little bit more than here's my badge.
And a lot of those course owners like it when you tag them or you reach out to connect with them as well. It's a great way to build your professional network as well.
So you've seen some other tools, Camtasia. I love Camtasia for videos. It's a lot easier for me than Adobe Premiere Pro. It's kind of intuitive to learn. And they have, like, if you purchase a subscription, they have free certification programs that teach you how to use it. And I think they even have like walkthrough files that you can build your own thing as you go.
Definitely, if you have a resource, make sure you're posting it in the feed so it doesn't get buried. Because I'm trying to paste what I see, but things are starting to get buried. So please share your tool in the feed. And then I think we had another question about Moodle. Jared, did you see it? How many teachers have used Moodle? Do you know of a number of corporations that use Moodle?
I don't know. I think, let's see, as the backbone for customized LMS. I don't work on the LMS side of our company. We have a different team for that. So I really don't know if Moodle is part of our backbone or not. But it's open source, so that is used in a lot of things. So if you know how to use Moodle well, that can definitely help. And yeah, Cindy, I love Snagit too. It's great.
And as far as LMSs, I've heard, kind of don't commit yourself to learning just one, because you can, if you know one, you can probably pick up others. It might be best, depending on what you're planning on doing. If the company uses it, then do it. But otherwise, try not to pigeonhole yourself between just learning one little thing and getting really down and lost in the weeds, if you will.
And to piggyback off of that, that goes for course authoring tools as well. Like a lot of companies don't care if you know all the tools out there. They want to know that you have learned one, because a lot of it's transferable. The company that I work for uses Domino. I had never heard of Domino until my second interview with them. My portfolio was Storyline, but because there's so much similarities there, they wanted to know about my process, how I did things, what my decisions were. And they ask about that sort of thing to figure out how I might fit with them. So the tool was secondary, it's more the processes behind it. Yeah, and it's accessible, and I like that it's responsive, so you can like shrink the screen sizes and it rearranges the page, Cindy. Whereas Storyline just shrinks everything, and some of that small text gets very hard to read.
Got probably about 12 more minutes. Keep your questions coming. If you have a tool that you like, make sure you throw it in the feed. Those of you looking for free resources, I know a lot of companies I've been to, some from iSpring, but I think Daphne threw in the link for Articulate. There's a lot of different resources, blogs and other places that kind of have tips and webinars if you're looking to pick up more tools and tips. Those are other good places to kind of sign up for. My only recommendation is kind of create an email that you don't love, because you will be bombarded by sales material. So if you don't mind the occasional reach out, they're a great way to build your skills as well. A lot of interesting things are covered. And again, it's being able to connect with people. No one else has thoughts? Have we bombarded you with enough information? Well, I can definitely, if you need to drop off and make dinner, totally fine. But if you want to hang out and ask some more questions, you definitely can. I'll probably hop off here and hang out at a table for a little while if anybody wants to come and share their story or just chat. But it looks like we don't have a lot of questions here. So we'll go ahead and wrap. If you want to come hang out with me, Jared, I don't know what your plans are. Are you going to come join a table, or you got to go have dinner, I guess, on the East Coast?
Dinner soon, but I can
Dinner
join a
soon.
table.
Okay. Well, anybody that wants to hang, I'll be at a table for probably about the next 30 minutes. But otherwise, definitely tune in tomorrow. We've got more sessions, so make sure if you can come. Otherwise, catch the recordings. Oh, Mark, if you when we close out this session, you'll see a lounge area, and that is where you'll find the tables in the lounge area. So when I close this session, look for that tab that says lounge, and it's right next to the schedule. So I'll catch you there if you want to join. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll wrap. And I appreciate everyone that came and attended today. This has been so much fun. We hope to see you tomorrow. And yeah, definitely connect with us via LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.